Keeping the memories, not the clutter. Think about that as I introduce Janine Bryant of Changing Spaces SRS. Janine joins me every Sunday morning for Easy Rightsizing. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning, Dale. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. All right, listeners, you've had a few moments to think about keeping the memories, not the clutter. You've had some time. In a word, it comes down to prioritization.
That's right, because you can't keep it all, can you, Dale?
No, you can't. You don't want to keep it all.
We don't. And, even though we love our family members and, all of us will at some point in our life experience losing family members, losing parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, but we can't live in a museum, right? Or we don't want to live in a museum. And so that is why this topic of keeping the memories, not the clutter, is such a relatable one, I think, to so many people, really to everyone at some point in your life. If you haven't had to deal with this yet, you will sometime. The time is coming. And I dedicated a whole chapter to this topic in my book called Ready to Rightsize. It's chapter number 5. And so much so that this is actually going to be the topic of my second book that I'm going to be working on that'll be released sometime next year, because it is such a emotional topic, and it's something that is so relatable, and it's something that really everyone struggles with at one point or another.
All right, how do we differentiate, Janine? This was tough for me. I'll relate a personal example. I had boxes of Blaze's artwork, assignments, different things from K through 6 in different boxes. They all were memories to me, and I decided to glean through them, and out of 6 boxes, I placed them down to 1. For me, they were all memories, but for him, I've learned that they're just clutter, and I'm over that now. But how do you define clutter from precious memories?
Well, that's a great question. I think that it does come down to prioritization and to setting limits for yourself, because just like you said, that was a perfect example. You took 6 boxes and you whittled them down to 1. Having 1 box of your child's artwork or keepsake papers is perfectly acceptable. And even if you moved to a 1-bedroom apartment, you would have room to keep that 1 box of keepsakes, right, in a closet somewhere, and that's totally fine. But 6 boxes of kids' papers when your kid is, 20s, 30s, that's a bit excessive.
It is excessive.
It's all about priorities, and it's setting a limit for yourself that is reasonable. We work with clients who have kept their children's baby clothes, and their children are 30, 40 years old, and, that there becomes a time, I think, when those keepsakes, they end up not necessarily bringing back great memories. There comes a time when there's so much of them, when the volume gets to be so great, that they actually become a burden. And so when those keepsakes become a burden, then that is when they're clutter. And that's when we have a problem and we have to address it. So one of the things that I try to encourage our clients to do when they're thinking about sorting through their keepsake items, whether it's their own keepsake items or someone, has passed away and they're emptying out a loved one's home, is to prioritize the items that you can either use or display. Because, the whole reason we're keeping an item, the name is right there in keepsake, we're keeping it for the sake of keeping it, right? And so it doesn't necessarily have a practical purpose. But if we're going to keep it, we're keeping it because it makes us feel good. It reminds us of happy times and good memories. So if you want it to remind you of happy times and good memories, it can't do that while it's stuck in a box in your basement or in the attic, right? So that's why I encourage people to keep things that they can either use or display, because that way they will see those items on a regular basis, and it will hopefully bring that joy up again of, if it's your grandfather's, mason jar collection and you have them displayed in your kitchen, when you see them regularly, it will remind you of your grandfather continually, rather than if they were sitting in a dusty box down in the basement storage room. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. There's a theme I see in chapter 5 here of your book, Janine, and that is asking yourself questions. You've touched on one. So why should I keep it? That's a good question to ask. Another good question, and I'd like you to expand on it because it's in your book. Why do I feel compelled to keep it? It's the why.
Absolutely. Identifying the reason you feel compelled to keep something and identifying that reason will really help you to determine whether or not it's a good decision to keep it or not. So do you feel compelled to keep an item because it makes you happy, because it brings back this flood of happy memories? Or do you feel compelled to keep it because, you'd feel pretty guilty if you got rid of that? Okay, it really doesn't mean anything to you, but boy, I can't get rid of this item that's been in my family for 3 generations. I don't even know what it is. It's an old farm tool, but boy, it's from the 1800s, and I would feel terrible if I got rid of it. So you have to think about the reason you feel compelled to keep it. Okay, another question that I ask our clients when we're working with them is, does looking at this keepsake make you happy? Or does it make you sad? You would be shocked, Dale, at how many people end up keeping keepsakes that really, when they really explore their feelings about them, they bring up painful memories or sad memories, and it really makes them sad to look at this item instead of happy. Why would we keep something that makes us sad? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. So we only want to keep things that make us happy when we look at them, and we have to be careful about keeping things just because we would feel guilty if we got rid of them, because that is not productive or useful.
And that leads into another question, and that is, if I get rid of this item, Janine, will I forget the memory?
Absolutely. And the example that I always use is to ask people to think about someone in their life that they have lost, okay, someone who has passed away either recently or 5-10 years ago, and then run through this exercise. Tell yourself, if I only had 10 items of that person's, okay, let's say it's your father passed away. If I only had 10 items that belonged to my father, would I remember him better if I had 25 items that belonged to him? And the answer, of course, is no, right? And so when you put it like that, then you realize the number of items that I keep from my loved one have no effect on how much I actually remember them, okay? And I think that's sometimes why we are tempted to hold on to those items, because it's part of the grief process. We're trying to hold on to the person by holding on to their stuff, which is totally understandable in the beginning. But after a year or 2 years or 3 years, we know that holding on to their stuff is not going to bring them back. It's not going to change our relationship with them. Our relationship with them is what it was, and our memories of them, they are what they are. And the amount of stuff that we keep is not going to change that.
Good subchapter in Chapter 5, Janine, is your insight into tackling the photographs. How do you know how many photographs to keep of a single event? Went to the Black Hills back in 1975, and I have 1,500 pictures of the Black Hills. How do I know which ones to keep?
It's all about priorities. I mean, I would say go through and keep the best, whatever you determine, the best 5, the best 10, the best 20, okay? Generally, you're keeping pictures that have people in them. You don't need pictures of the black bear that you saw when you visited that, animal park 35 years ago. But you probably do want pictures of everyone who was on the trip, the grandparents and the parents and the kids. And so lots of times it's pictures of people that you want to keep. And again, it is all about prioritization. One of the quotes that I refer to often is from a professional organizer. Her name is Erin Rooney Doland, and she has said about keepsakes, "Since I can't keep everything, is this item the best example of the memory I wish to be keeping?" So your example of the Black Hills, okay? Since you can't keep every picture of your trip to the Black Hills, think about what is the best representation to remind you of your trip to the Black Hills. Or if you used to go fishing with your grandfather and your grandfather's passed away, you're emptying out the house, maybe you don't need to keep his entire fishing collection, but maybe you just keep the tackle box, okay? And that would be the best representation of a pastime with him that you enjoyed.
Keep the tackle box and tell the stories.
Absolutely.
Rather than the pictures, less clutter. Here's an idea, and my wife and I have talked about this for literally years. We're going to sit down and we're going to scan our photographs. We have boxes of photographs. We're going to scan our photographs, or we are going to purge through them on the computer and save only the one. We have trips to Ireland and Germany and grandkids, and it just goes on and on with the categories. That would be a great task to take on.
Absolutely, yes. And that's a task that you can do yourself, Dale. If you want to do it, you can also hire it done. There are local companies in town that will scan your photographs. There's also national companies in town that will scan your photographs. So if you start with a simple Google search, you can search photo organizers and then your zip code. You'll probably come up with a few. If local folks here in Lincoln need some suggestions, they can certainly give us a call at our office, and we'd be happy to give you some suggestions. Our phone number is 402-483-0555. But yes, getting your photos scanned is a great way to cut down on clutter, and then it also enables you to share those photos with everyone in your family. You don't have to fight over who gets which photos when they are scanned, because everyone can have a copy. And that's the beauty of scanning the photos. And we've talked before, we have past radio episodes that we've talked about photo organizing. I have a blog on easyrightsizing.com that talks about photo organizing and a video, because it's a big topic and it's something that we can all relate to. But in those resources, I talk about how you don't need to keep every photograph that you've ever taken. Again, prioritization, keep the best, let go of the rest. And then it doesn't seem so overwhelming.
Where can people go to hear our conversations again, Janine?
Yeah, they can go to my website, easyrightsizing.com. And there you will find links to buy the book. You will find videos, blog articles, free downloadable resource sheets, and past episodes of this very radio show.
Join us every Sunday morning for Easy Rightsizing.